Up my ducks, welcome back to the Hermit's Cave. Simon here. So, Rivalry of the Waite Smiths. Why am I doing this? I guess because the RWS, as all of you who have followed my channel for a long period of time will know, is my soul deck. It's my number one. Soul deck being the one that just goes deep, the one that you have the greatest bond with, the greatest connection, the one that you would save from the burning building, etc, etc. I did a tag years ago called My Soul Deck, which was great because I got to see lots of other people's soul decks as well. I think that was about 7 years ago now. It was right at the start of my YouTube journey anyway. But over the years, I have collected a myriad of different RWS versions. Now, I need to kind of be clear and clarify that, because I don't mean decks that just follow an RWS system. You know, like, I don't know, Llewellyn Tarot, for example, or Druidcraft, or what I mean is decks that are what I hear often as clones of the RWS, the original RWS. And personally, I don't share the view that there's too many. Over the last few years, there has been, without a doubt, a proliferation of different versions. Once that the artwork became copyright free, obviously people are going to jump on that. And there's loads that you can get, you know, different colours, going back from the 60s and 70s with like Albano Waite, or the University Books one, or maybe even more recent like Wiser Tarot, that take Pixie's artwork and either recolor it or redraw it. I'm thinking of like Hanson Roberts, which is, I don't see that as an exact kind of replica, but it is a clone. Or even you know, decks like the Golden Rider is another one that springs to mind that I love. You only have to go on to NPC to see things like the WS Tarot, and I forgot the name of the other one that's got the it's got the lovely colours, but there's also the Dirty Pam, which was the Pamela Coleman Smith Tarot. There's lots of versions out there that are a very close replica to the original deck. And this deck, which we're going to start off with for episode 1, if you like, is the most recent one that I've got, which is the Retina Waite Smith. You want to see a full kind of walkthrough? Well, I guess I'm going to do it now, but there is a first impressions walkthrough of this. It's the second version of the one that came out last year, which has the gold foiling, etc. This deck I absolutely love. It's been redrawn and recolored by Sing Poon Fat, who's one of the artists over at Dextony. But the constant will be this deck. So whatever I do a comparison with, this is the one that comes in the Taschen set. It's not the Roses and Lilies. This is the 1910 edition, Tarot of A.E. Waite and Pamela Coleman Smith. Like I said, that came with the Taschen set. Because this was just a few months after the 1909, where they'd kind of corrected any sort of what they thought was, you know, they'd made some perfections to it. So this is the Crackleback from 1910. This is to try and replicate as well the original. It's on a thicker cardstock, which is identical actually with the thickness of the cardstock of the Retina Waite Smith. But the constant is, this is going to be the benchmark that I'm going to use, because it's supposed to be the most likeness of the 1910. And I'm going to do a kind of, well, I'm going to call this the Rivalry of Waite Smith, because RWS is just a play on words, really, bit of a pun. There will be some that are even closer, because this one doesn't use Pixi's font, others do. Another great example is Universal Waite, because that's a redrawing as well. But anyway, yeah, so we will look at the comparisons between the two, how similar they are or dissimilar, how they've changed use of colour, line work, all that good stuff. Another reason for doing this is when I was doing Cup of Ketchup and cards last night, somebody said, I think it might have been Robin at Toadstool Tower, I'm not 100% sure, but someone said, has this now replaced this deck as your soul deck? And no, it hasn't, but it's an RWS, so it kind of is the soul deck anyway. But I've always said the Blushing Fool is my soul deck because of that lovely cardstock and beautiful line work and coloration, and it's not patchy, it's gorgeous. But that deck is now 53 years old. It was from 1971. This is one of the latest ones on beautiful matte cardstock that replicates the original in that huge Taschen box set. And then also there's comments been left on the walkthrough of the Retina Waite Smith Tarot where people are saying, actually, I still prefer Pixi's original artwork and line work, and I get that too. I don't think any new version of the RWS necessarily takes anything away from the original. That's just my opinion. You might have a different opinion of that. But I thought it would be cool to do side by side, a little bit of rivalry between the two to see, like I said, those things that I mentioned, how close they are to it or how way off they are. And also see if any particular wins out. If you would like to see other RWS clones rival the original, let me know in the comments, and what I'll do is I'll make a list. I don't know how regular I'll do this, perhaps every few weeks or once a month or something like that, but I'll bring in another RWS deck and we'll do a comparison with the original. All right, enough rambling. I'm going to bring the camera down and we will begin. Okay, so let's start with our Fool. The backs, we don't really need to mention the backs. This is the original 1910 crackle back. This one is beautiful. This deck is also gilded. In terms of cardstock, they're very similar. This Taschen cardstock is nice and thick, soft matte. This one is also, it almost feels like identical cardstock actually. So you're getting good quality cardstock. Obviously, as I mentioned, this deck, the Retina, is redrawn. So they haven't used a scan of Pixi's art or line work, because there's some, I've got one actually, a little black and white deck that, is just line work. They haven't taken that and recolored it. They've actually redrawn it completely. And a few people have often talked about coloration of RWS. They don't like the gaudy yellows. In this 1910, it's actually quite muted. I think it's lovely. In fact, it's brighter in this one. But they've done a great job, if you compare the two. If you look at something like the dog, You know, here it's great. It's great line work, but it looks more natural and realistic, I suppose, in this one. But I think they've done a fantastic job. Now, the Magician, again, it's a replica. It's redrawn. The flowers, in particular, are a lot tidier in this version. There's something about the Magician's face in this one that I'm not keen on. This one looks kind of more natural, but again, great job. I like the use of light behind the Magician here. It does give that sense of sort of magic and this kind of light beaming behind him as he's casting his wand up to the heavens. The High Priestess. I mean, it's certainly a this one is certainly a modern take, but they've kept all the original detailing, even Torah, look on the scroll, the exact same amount of pomegranates and where the position of them, the crescent moon, and how a little bit of the dress goes over it. Empress. The dress is a lot less busy. The corn, you can really see the corn in detail there. Same with the tree in the background. It stands out from the other trees behind it. The Emperor. The mountain range on this is wonderful. I mean, the original is just, it's everything, isn't it? And I guess the question for us is, do we need other versions? When they're this similar, what does it add? You could argue that, you know, we're living in a modern world, but there's something about the tarot that's quite ancient for me, and I feel like, you know, when I pick up a tarot deck and I'm about to do a reading, I'm holding a part of history. It feels more authentic to use a deck that's 100 years old over. But then I can understand why this one, with its beautiful colours and clean lines, also appeals. I kind of wish this one had Pixie's font. If it had Pixie's font, and this, I mean, this just looks nice on a table under candlelight because of, you know, the extra bits like the gilding. The Chariot. I think they did a fantastic job in replicating the original. Again, we don't get flat colours. Do you see the shading of the yellow and the light behind her? The Hermit is different. We have different coloration here. We've got the blue background. It's like an eggshell, duck egg blue, I should say. Whereas it's very atmospheric. The cloak is different as well. We've got a very pale grey here and a dark and light shaded cloak. The glow from the lantern. You can hardly see any difference here really, other than the line work and sharpness, but brilliant. Just discard. It's fun to see I don't think I've ever, even though I've had this deck now for, not this particular one, but the first edition for over a year. I don't think I've looked at it and thought, wow, this is, you know, brilliant in terms of how close it is to the original, but I don't think I've ever done a side by side. I do love the coloration in this of the death card, the sky, when you see the sunset here and the glow of the sun against the sky, and then the dark sky coming in because of that sunset. I think the background is wonderful, but everything else is pretty much in keeping. You do lose a little bit with the border here. I say the border, the band where you've got your card title. As you can see, his face is right in the middle of that, whereas the title band here is underneath the image. Temperance. The Devil is great. I love both versions here of the Devil. I like the shading of the skin tone in this one. The Tower. Star. Again, I don't know why, but I always see a kind of Homer Simpson face in the star card, no matter what version I'm looking at. This one, of course, has what's often referred to as the oh shit squiggle, which was removed in later copies. It was seen as obviously an error, and in later versions of the RWS, that's gone. It was corrected. It's interesting that when they redrew it, they left it out as well. And our world card. So for the miners, I'm only going to provide a narrative through the major arcana. For the miners, you'll still get to see them all, but that'll be to some music, and then I will come back at the end and talk about my thoughts about the two and where this kind of ranks with its rivalry against the original. So that's the full side-by-side comparison. So my thoughts on Retina Waite Smith tarot. I think they've tried to be as faithful as possible in honouring Pamela Coleman Smith and her art by drawing almost, I mean, if we look at something like, where were we in the swords? If we look at the Eight of Swords, for example, whilst we've got a very shaded background, which I think is really nice, because, you know, these, and you've got to think about printing back in the day, they've been really careful to make sure they're as close as possible, even with the position where the handle and hilt goes to. You know, it's exact. Where these spires or turrets in the castle in the background appear is in exactly the same position. They do add shadows, which is really cool, like you'll see here in the 10 with the shadows of the swords, which of course don't happen in the original. So I do think that they've tried to honour Pixie and her artwork by getting it as close as possible, but also breathing this this kind of new life by use of colour. I wanted to compare, let's look at Three of Wands. Where are we? So Three of Wands, just to illustrate. I mean, it's lighter here, darker here, so there is some shading happening in the original, but then when you compare it with this version, you really get a sense here of, as is looking out, we've got this setting sun, you've got this light here, and then the darker aspect. So for me, it makes it more looking like he's looking out over a horizon with a setting sun. So I do think that's gorgeous. Also, if we look at a few before, the King of Cups, I mean, just look how beautiful they made the King of Cups. Still using the same colours, no colours have changed. I know there's lots of different versions out there where you know, colours have changed. One that's being done at the moment by Tarot Collectibles is the JK Waite, which uses different colours but also different directions, but again, that's because it's a Japanese deck, and when they read from right to left rather than left to right like we do in the West. But yeah, I think this is, you know, a good illustration of sharpening using colour and shading to give this effect. So in terms of deck rivalry, am I mixing? No, I'm not. I just don't know why my Ace of Wands is on top. I think I need to put a caveat in to say that this deck will always, you know, have a place in my heart. It's gorgeous. It's my number one. But I do like to see what creators can also do with the RWS. And I started with this one in particular because I have to say it is my favourite clone that I've seen to date. I think it is beautiful, everything about it. Getting the cardstock right, which is exact to the original, and the same feel, just beautiful. So yeah, everybody knows I really like this. Let me know, as I mentioned at the beginning, if you would like to see other RWS decks pitted against the original. If only just to see a side by side to see the difference, or you know, to have a look at whether it is a rival for the original, and could replace it in people's hearts. All right, thanks for watching, everybody. Let me know your thoughts below. Where does this fit for you against the original? And until next time, go in peace. Namaste and blessed be.